Welcome to Refuting Rationality, the show where we refute the YouTube atheist Rationality Rules. In today's episode, Mr. Rationality is going to try and prove his model of the Big Bang by appealing to his own ignorance. Let's begin.
Completely different physics within a multiverse.
The Born-Guth-Vilenkin theorem is independent of any physical description of that early beginning of the universe. Their theorem implies that even if the universe is just part of a wider multiverse of many universes, even then the multiverse itself must have an absolute beginning.
But this simply isn't true, and here's Alex Guth himself saying as much in response to a question from Robert Lawrence Kuhn.
What happened before? How did inflation start? How did you, whether it was a 10 to the minus 39th the second, but, what happened before that?
Right.
And where are we?
Where are we? Well, we still certainly don't know the answer to that question, and inflation, in fact, makes it a particularly difficult question to answer because the gigantic expansion associated with inflation, really from an observational point of view, essentially completely erases any evidence of what came before.
So right away you can see the appeal to ignorance there, but on a more subtle note, at the end he says that from an observational point of view, it erases evidence of what happened before. But we don't need to observe what happened before to be able to infer what happened before. And of course, the faulty appeal to authority by saying Alex Guth agrees with him rather than why Alex Guth agrees with him. And even in that clip, Alex Guth doesn't seem to say that that isn't the case. All he says is he doesn't know.
Now, of course, I've been very terse in explaining these discoveries and their specific ramifications, and so I recommend that you learn more about them at another time. But notice that while they all scream that the observable universe once coalesced into a minuscule hot dense state, they do not scream that absolutely everything emerged from absolutely nothing. Sure, they fit such a hypothesis, but, well, let me approach this with an analogy. Consider any of all the explosions we've ever seen, such as this one. If we existed on a tiny fragment of this exploded bomb and were able to deduce by, say, the redshifting of nearby fragments that upon a time every fragment once coalesced into a hot dense state, would we be justified in asserting that we know that the singularity emerged from absolutely nothing? Of course not. We'd have to say, we don't know what happened during the earliest state.
And this would be begging the question right into an appeal to ignorance, because he states that you'd be unjustified in saying the explosion came from nothing, but he hasn't justified that all the space and matter actually went back to the furthest possible point. But I'll cover that in more detail at the end of the video. If he wanted to be consistent with his appeal to ignorance, he would have to also say, we don't know, it didn't come from absolutely nothing, especially since he says that it fits the hypothesis. But no, he is assuming his worldview is correct, and he is appealing to ignorance to try and prove it.
The answer to the question, did the universe begin to exist, is not yes.
The whole universe, in fact, originated about 14 billion years ago.
The universe is not eternal in the past, but had an absolute beginning a finite time ago.
It's we don't know.
We are still totally clueless about what happened before the universe started to expand.
It's a placeholder for our lack of understanding.
And so, what this already collapses into is an equivocation fallacy. There are two prominent concepts of the Big Bang. One that posits that the universe expanded from an extremely hot and dense state, which I'll hereon refer to as the expanding model, and another that posits that absolutely everything emerged from absolutely nothing, which I'll hereon refer to as the nihilo model. Now, as it currently stands, that is, with all of the scientific knowledge that we've acquired, we are justified in saying that the expanding model is almost certainly true, but we are not justified in asserting that the nihilo model is true. In fact, while we have hypotheses and theories that predict violations of the law of conservation of energy, we've never seen such a violation, and so, as it stands, everything is creatio ex materia. Everything is rearrangement of already existing matter.
So he thinks that because he hasn't seen any examples of creation ex nihilo, that creation ex materia must be the only possible option. This is begging the question, because even if he saw creation ex nihilo, he would not know it. There would be no way to prove that the creation actually came out of nothing. But for the universe as a whole, there is. So now I will combat his appeal to ignorance with my appeal to what we know. Fact number 1. The universe is expanding. What conclusions can we draw from this? We can conclude that the universe was smaller in the past, and we can conclude based on the speed, what the maximum age of the universe would be. We cannot conclude that all that matter actually went to the furthest point. That's like stopping someone on a street, asking them where they're coming from, and they point in a direction, and you assume they started 1 foot in front of them because they're pointing behind them and the earth is round. Fact number 2. The expansion is getting faster. What can we conclude from this? We can conclude that the universe will not have a rubber band effect and collapse in on itself. That would require the expansion, to be slowing down. Also, it may change the calculations for how old the universe would actually be at the maximum possible point. Fact number 3. The laws of thermodynamics, specifically entropy, followed closely by fact number 4, that the universe has a finite amount of usable energy. And I'll even go in right to fact number 5, that all matter is energy. Matter and energy are two sides of the same coin. So what conclusions can we draw from these 3 facts? First and foremost, that all the energy and matter in the universe are not eternal. They couldn't be, because in order to be eternal, there would have to be an infinite amount of usable energy. And I'll quickly throw in fact number 6 here, that something must be eternal. Whether you want to say the universe or God, something must be eternal. Otherwise, you're stuck with an infinite regression. And since we already know energy is not eternal, at least the energy in our universe is not eternal, that energy had to come from outside the universe. Which would also mean the universe didn't even exist before the energy was put into it. Therefore, the universe was created out of nothing. The best you could hope to say it wasn't created out of nothing is to say it was created out of whatever possessed the infinite amount of energy required to create the universe. And fact number 7, cosmic background radiation. What conclusion can we draw from it? Not much. Atheists have their theories that the Big Bang caused it, but perhaps it could just be the result of expansion, or even maybe God just put it there because it looked nice. But to conclude the Big Bang, that would just be begging the question.